The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Under the harsh white lights, everything looked colder than it really was: the tiled floors, the metal benches, even the faces of people waiting for news that could change their lives forever. At the far end of the hallway, a little girl stood on trembling legs, her faded pink dress slightly torn at the hem, her small fingers gripping the sleeve of a busy doctor. Her blonde hair was messy, her cheeks streaked with tears, and her voice, though tiny, carried a desperation powerful enough to pierce the noise of the entire emergency ward. "Please, save my mommy. I'll pay you when I grow up." The doctor, Dr. Arman Shah, had heard countless pleas in his 10 years of service. He had seen grief, anger, denial, and hope. But something about the way this child said those words made him stop. Really stop. He looked down at her, noticing her worn-out sandals, the way she tried to stand brave despite shaking, and the way her blue eyes held more responsibility than any child should ever carry. Her mother, Sanaa, had been rushed in 30 minutes earlier after collapsing at the small factory where she worked double shifts. Severe internal bleeding, the nurses had whispered. She needed immediate surgery. But there was a problem: a deposit was required before the operating room could be prepared. The hospital wasn't cruel, it was drowning in unpaid bills. Dr. Arman hated that rule more than anyone. He bent down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Isla," she sniffed, trying to wipe her tears with the back of her hand. "My mommy said doctors are heroes. You're a hero, right?" Her innocent question struck him harder than any accusation could. Before he could answer, the elevator at the end of the hallway opened with a soft chime. Out stepped a man surrounded by security and hospital administrators, tall, sharply dressed in a navy suit, his presence commanding immediate attention. It was Zaid Rahman, the billionaire philanthropist who had funded half the hospital's new wing. He was there for a board meeting, but the moment his eyes landed on Isla, the world around him seemed to disappear. He froze. Completely. The color drained from his face as he stared at the little girl clinging to the doctor. The same eyes. The same tiny birthmark near her left eyebrow. His heart pounded violently in his chest. Memories he had buried for 5 years came crashing back: the night he lost the love of his life, the argument fueled by pride, the woman who walked away carrying his unborn child, refusing his money, refusing his name. Sanaa. He had searched for her at first, but his ego and the pressures of his empire had eventually silenced his efforts. He convinced himself she had moved on. That she didn't want him involved. And now, here stood a child who looked exactly like the younger version of himself in old photographs. "Who is that girl?" Zaid demanded, his voice unsteady for the first time in years. The administrator hesitated. "A patient's daughter. The mother needs urgent surgery," but he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Isla noticed the man staring and instinctively tightened her grip on Dr. Arman's coat. Billionaires didn't exist in her world of rented rooms and unpaid school fees. To her, he was just another stranger who looked important. But Zaid felt something shift inside him, something primal and protective. He stepped closer, kneeling unexpectedly in front of her. His expensive suit brushed against the hospital floor, but he didn't care. "What's your mommy's name?" he asked softly, afraid of the answer yet desperate for it. "Sanaa," Isla replied, her voice cracking. That single word shattered the final wall around his heart. He closed his eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of truth. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't fate playing games. This was his daughter. His blood. His second chance, standing in front of him, begging another man to save her mother because she had no idea her own father had the power to move mountains. Dr. Arman watched the exchange carefully. He sensed there was more to this moment than he understood. "She needs surgery now," he said firmly. "Every minute counts." Zaid stood abruptly, his billionaire composure snapping back into place, but his eyes remained glassy with emotion. "Prepare the operating room immediately. I'll cover all expenses. Not just today, every medical need she will ever have." The administrators scrambled into action. Rules that had seemed immovable seconds ago dissolved instantly. Nurses rushed past with renewed urgency. Isla blinked in confusion. "Does that mean you'll save my mommy?" she asked Dr. Arman. The doctor gave her a reassuring nod. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to do everything we can." She looked at Zaid shyly. Thank you, mister. I promise I'll pay you back when I'm big. Zaid's throat tightened painfully. You don't owe me anything, he whispered, barely holding himself together. It's my job to protect you. As Sanaa was wheeled into surgery, Zaid remained outside the operating room, staring at the red light above the door. For the first time in years, board meetings and stock markets meant nothing. His empire felt small compared to the fragile life behind that door. He replayed every mistake he had made, every call he didn't return, every moment he chose pride over love. If he had searched harder, if he had humbled himself sooner, Isla would never have had to beg anyone for help. The guilt was suffocating. Dr. Arman emerged briefly to update him. She's critical, but we're trying. Zaid nodded, his voice steady but low. Save her. Whatever it takes. Hours passed like centuries. Isla eventually fell asleep on the waiting bench, exhausted from crying. Zaid quietly removed his suit jacket and placed it over her small body. He studied her face, his daughter's face, and felt something awaken in him that money had never been able to buy: purpose. Finally, the surgery light turned off. Dr. Arman stepped out, removing his gloves. There was a pause, the kind that makes hearts stop. She's stable, he said. Relief flooded Zaid so powerfully he had to grip the wall to steady himself. Isla stirred awake. Mommy, she asked anxiously. Zaid knelt beside her again. Your mommy is going to be okay, he said, and this time his voice carried both authority and tenderness. Tears streamed down Isla's cheeks, but they were different now, tears of hope. In that hallway, surrounded by strangers and sterile walls, a broken family began to mend. Zaid knew the road ahead would not be simple. There would be explanations, apologies, and perhaps anger. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty: he would never let pride steal his family again. And as he held Isla's tiny hand in his, he silently vowed that the little girl who once begged a doctor to save her mother would grow up never having to beg anyone for anything again. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness, responsibility, and second chances can change lives in an instant, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join our community. Every subscription helps us bring you more powerful, emotional stories that inspire hope and humanity. Your support means everything, and the next life-changing story might be just one click away.